And what a capitulation by the Windies. Good morning, Paul.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, look, the sad thing was that for most of the series, the Windies were actually half decent. Australia won the first 2 tests, but the West Indies kept up with them reasonably well. But now no one's going to be talking about anything other than 27. It should have been the lowest score ever. Sam Constas dropped 2 catches and misfielded, conceding 5 runs. So I think
they were lucky then, the Windies. They got off lightly.
They were lucky to get to 27. Yeah, you don't say that often. Mitchell Starc took 15 balls to take 5 wickets, which is the fastest fifer in the history of Test cricket, beating it by 4 balls. You know, those sorts of records that have been around for a century and a half, you don't tend to beat them by Usain Bolt metrics, but it was pretty astonishing to watch, I must say.
So he's now past the 400 wicket mark, I think, in the longer form of the game.
Yeah, he said that because of his 100th Test match, and he said he didn't want much attention. He got embarrassed by the scrutiny. So during his 100th Test, he proceeded to take his full 100th wicket, take the best opening spell in the history of the game, and in doing so, overshadowed Scott Boland, who took a hat-trick. It's not often you take a hat-trick and you don't get to kick the match ball.
I was watching Mitchell Starc be interviewed afterwards as well, and I thought, maybe he'll be, he won't rub it into the Indies.
No, he's Australian, of course he will.
He was in true Australian fashion. He was loving it.
When a man's down, kick him.
And I thought, fair play to him. His performance was great. We don't need this sort of confidence from the Aussies, though, mate, in an Ashes year.
Well, the thing is that you read all the reports in Australia, and we're all saying, our bowling is fantastic, but there's a lot of concern about the batting. I mentioned Sam Constas, the 19-year-old who really lit up Boxing Day, ramping Jasprit Bumrah in the most audacious fashion and getting even non-cricket fans talking cricket. Sadly, he had a shocking tour. Usman Khawaja, 38, didn't have much better. So our opening batters are, if you want some hope for the Ashes, and you need some, given you've only won here once since I think Thatcher was Prime Minister, there's something for you with our poor openers.
Although, of course, we're 2-1 up in the Test against India, and we've still got Bazball to unleash, if that's still going.
We're getting there. But how is this going to be looked at by the Australian press then, mate? As this, because you can't really analyse it, can you? Because 27, it's almost as though it.
Yeah, but Australia were all out in the second innings for 121.
Yes,
they're terrible.
How are you
terrible
looking
batting,
at it?
Terrible.
Are you looking at it as a great bowling performance?
Paul's confirmed it. They're the worst batting side Australia have ever fielded, he just said, I think. I made that up, I think.
I think there's a sense of sadness because those of us old enough can remember the West Indies were just unbelievable. And the thing is, I was reading an article today that the feeling in the West Indies is more apathy rather than anything else. They've kind of given up on Test cricket. And, they've got a small population. The game is run poorly. The money's not there, so all the good players are playing T20s, and you wouldn't blame them. And so I think, there's an acknowledgement that this Australian bowling lineup is pretty special. And I mentioned Scott Boland. If he was English, he'd have probably played 120 Test matches now. He's probably a better bowler than Jimmy Anderson. But as an Australian, he rarely gets a game.
Now, I'm old enough to remember when Tony Greig was captaining England before he went off and worked with Freddie Laker, and he once said they're playing the West Indies, and he said they're a great side. He said, but if you get them down, they grovel, and we're going to make them grovel. Yes. And it didn't quite turn out like that, did it? So it sounds like we're talking about a deflated West Indies. Can they ever turn this around? Because there's, the feeling in some quarters, not amongst the two of us in here. I don't mind one-day cricket and all that kind of stuff, but it's Test cricket that really counts. If the Windies have fallen out of love with it, that's very disturbing news, Paul.
They could turn it round if world cricket wanted to, because the talent is still there. Like, their bowling was actually really good. Their bowling kept them in the series. For the whole series, even though they got out to 27, they averaged 15 runs per wicket. Australia averaged 23. So it's not the most massive gap. It's just that they play basketball, they play, they're interested in American sports and interested in athletics.
Yeah.
And there's just no money in it whatsoever. Even English cricketers and Australians are tempted to go and play in the IPL. But when you're talking about maybe getting $20,000 or $30,000 playing for the West Indies versus $2 or $3 million playing in the IPL, that's just a life-changing consideration. I remember that I was too young to watch it, but that Tony Greig one, I think when they did then lose in 1976, to be fair to Tony Greig, he himself grovelled in front of the West Indies crowd.
Absolutely, they did. I mean, it was one of those kind of mind games that backfired on him very badly indeed. There's also a very sad quote from the Windies captain, Roston Chase. He says, it's heartbreaking to be in a position where we think we can win the game and then come out and have that poor batting display. He was out for a duck, wasn't he, the captain?
Well, there were 7 ducks, the most in the history of cricket.
7.
Hey, that's quackers.
That is mad. Oh, man.
But he was right. Like, I was watching it.
Yeah.
Australia, as you said, they collapsed in the morning, and West Indies, they had a gettable target. There was a chance that West Indies could have won, but 3 wickets in the first over, not a good start.
Well, they 204, I think they needed for victory, didn't they? Which is not an Everest to climb. It normally, is it?
You'd almost feel shortchanged if you bought a ticket, though, wouldn't you, as well? Are there any eyes on England over in Australia with this India Test series going on? Jofra Archer looks in fine form.
Been back for a few years, he says.
Yeah. You're scared a little bit, mate?
They're always scared.
We got you shaking in your boots a bit?
I think the thing is that England just, aside from 2010-11 when you won down here, the problem is you come here with a reputation and don't deliver. I mean, Jofra Archer coming back does look very exciting. And look, I think Joe Root, Jamie Smith, Harry Brook, and Ben Duckett, it's a pretty good batting lineup. So the thing is that's interesting is that Australian pitches have changed in the last few years. Everyone's sort of thinking, we need airspeed, we need Mark Wood, we need Jofra Archer. The thing that's actually changed is our balls have got a little bit more conducive to swing, and our pitches have got a bit more in them. And so the traditional Australian roads that you're feeling like you've got to come out here and win on have changed a little bit, which probably doesn't suit England in the Bazball era. Your pitches have actually gone in the opposite direction.
Now, I think what's next for the sides is a 5-match T20 series. That begins 21st of July, so it's kind of this weekend. Any thoughts on that, finally?
Yeah, the thoughts on that are that no one in Australia will care, and yet everyone in the West Indies will care. They're saying that
it's in Jamaica, of course, isn't it?
Yeah, like I think that the first couple of games there, then they're going off elsewhere after that for the last few. But yeah, in Australia, the Test matches are everything, and it's pretty hard to get up in the middle of the night to watch those T20s. But I think Australia's got a pretty good exciting. They've got a player by the name of Mitch Owen, who is a young and emerging star. So keep an eye on him. But yeah, I think it's one of these forgettable bilateral T20 series, quite sadly.
Paul, you've been a top guest, mate. I hope we get to talk again. Thank you very much for your time this morning. What a great bloke. Paul Dennett there, host of the Dennett on Cricket podcast, available on podcast providers. I know that's some mediocre ones, but it's a cracking listen. And he was a great guest talking to me, Paul Ross and Kane Reeves here on talkSPORT and on Talk. I mean, it seems unthinkable.
27.
The wind is out for 27.
So the lowest totals in Test cricket. New Zealand, they top it against England at Auckland in 1955. They were all out for just 26. Then the West Indies second with 27 last night. South Africa against England, they scored only 30 in 1896.
I remember it well.
South Africa, again, fourth on the list. Against England in Birmingham, they reached only 30 in 1924. So, look, 1955, we've had to wait all the way since then for a score as low as in your 20s.
I mean, it's difficult to think any side, any national side, is going to run out with less than 26 runs or fewer than 26 runs. I suppose it could happen. But who would have predicted that?
Well, the
27 all out for the Windies.
Cricket West Indies president, Dr. Kishore Shallow, he called an emergency meeting to review the series.
Emergency!
In particular, that final match. The review is going to be packed with some of the biggest hitters. Sir Viv Richards, Sir Clive Lloyd and Brian Lara. They're all going to be invited to attend, so hopefully,
But they're all retired.
Yeah, but they can talk about how you get hold
the bat in front of the stumps, which seemed to be advice number one. Don't hit kind of swinging up balls that anyone can catch, and then be better.
But as Paul said, they are falling out of love with Test cricket in the Indies, so we need them to, we don't want them just touring around and getting absolutely pummeled.
If they're going to be thumped by anyone, be thumped by England. Please don't be thumped by Australia. They've got enough to crow about.
So hopefully Brian Lara...
And Paul's little twist there, you've only won the Ashes once since Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister.
Fair point. Well, in Australia. But, he forgot to mention all the times that we've beaten them over here.
Also, as we know, most Australians aren't allowed to leave the country.
I do love that. That was so Australian.
Great, though, yeah. I don't know, he didn't rub out. He said he mentioned 7 ducks. I thought, oh, my God. Of course there would have been.
Mitchell Stark, I thought, during his interview, I thought he'll play it down a little bit.
No.
Not at all. I thought he'll be like what Brendan Rodgers was like when Leicester thumped Southampton 9-1, and he'll say, it wasn't as easy as it looked.
That was pity, though.
But yeah, Mitchell Stark went, that was done quickly, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were back in the pub with an arm around a Sheila after 2 hours. That's incredible. So huge thanks to Paul Dennett there from the Dennett on Cricket podcast. We're going to